Good afternoon, everyone. The time is now 3:01 p.m. I am calling to order the May regular and certification meeting of the Cobb County Board of Elections. Again, the time is 3:01. With that, I will invite all those willing and able to rise with me to recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Obviously, we all received the correspondence from Director Fall just prior to the meeting that we are going to likely need to take a recess in the middle of the meeting for a swearing in. And so with that, I have spoken with Director Fall and would propose to amend the agenda such that the first two items under new business, that being the director's election report, as well as the certification of the April 29th special general election, be moved to just after the approval of the agenda. So again, the amendment would be new business items 1 and 2 would follow the approval of the agenda, and then we would just pick up from there, noting that we will need to take a recess at 3:50 p.m. So, that being said, is there a motion with respect to the agenda?
Trying to understand.
Your microphone.
Trying to understand. We would take a recess at what time?
At 3:50 p.m. because we were advised that there needs to be a swearing in here at 4 p.m. So irrespective of where we are in the agenda, we would recess at 3:50. But to your point, per your email, items 1 and 2 need to take place prior to that swearing in at 4 p.m. Okay. So the proposal is to take items 1 and 2 under new business and put them ahead of public comment.
So moved.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bruning. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Fisher. It's been moved and properly seconded to approve the agenda as amended. And again, that amendment is moving items under new business 1 and 2 to above the, or to occur prior to public comment. All those in favor? The motion passes unanimously. So for those of you that are here with us that have signed up for public comment, you just heard, we will need to take a recess at 3:50 p.m. So we will get to you in the order in which you have signed up after we take up the first two items on the agenda. Pardon me, the first two items in new business. And the first of which is the director's election report.
Thank you. We'll get our slides pulled up here. Thank you. So we'll go ahead and work through the pre-election day numbers, election day numbers, and post-election day, and then we'll take a break. The other two items on my slides will take place later in the meeting. So for pre-election day for AIP, we had 6,217 total voters. You can see this spread across our 3 sites there, with Smyrna being the busiest with just under 3,000 voters, followed by our main office with just under 2,000. Here's just a little breakdown by party and district to show you what the turnout was for AIP specifically between parties and districts. You can see we had higher turnout on the Democrat side and then higher turnout in District 2 over District 4 as well. So I thought that was an interesting breakdown of the numbers. The blanks are factored in there when you look at the election summary report that's in your packets. You'll notice that the ballots cast are slightly less than the voters, and so that's just because we had 1 voter in District 2 who cast a blank ballot, and then 2 voters in District 4 cast a blank ballot, which is common. When we look at ABM, we had a total of 163 voters vote. That way, we issued 181 regular ballots and 8 provisional ballots. 159 regular ballots were returned, which is a great return rate for us, this being our biggest ABM election so far this year. 6 provisional ballots were returned, and 4 of those were cured. 2 were not ultimately cured, so they were not counted. That gave us a total of 163 voters for ABM. And here's that same breakdown. You can see higher turnout in ABM for Democrats and then higher as well in District 2. So kind of the same trend we saw in AIP. When we look at our election day numbers, we have our turnout. So you can see we really peaked towards the end of the day. We were steady in the afternoon hours and then really picked up in that post-work crowd, which we're used to, kind of bringing us up. So that was a good visual to see kind of what our averages were for each hour. And then here's that same breakdown by party and district for election day sites. You can see a few blank ballots cast on election day as well. That brought us to our total of 10,066 voters voting on election day. When we look at our official and complete results, the only number that's changed from Friday is the provisional. So we ended up with 22. So 2 ABM did not cure, as I mentioned earlier. 1 election day did not cure. So we ended with 22, which is 0.01% turnout. So that gave us a total of 16,468 ballots cast. And that is the same as our numbered list as well. So our numbered list matched up, as y'all are aware, with the copy you received on Friday. So that gave us a total of 6.85% turnout for this election. Tomorrow we have our risk limiting audit. It'll begin at 9 a.m. The parties have already been notified. There'll be 6 teams, so both parties can send 6 representatives. And it'll take place at our main office. We'll be auditing just over 10,000 ballots for a 5% risk limit. And that concludes my election report.
Thank you, Director Fall. Does anyone have any questions for Director Fall with respect to the election report? Okay. Hearing none. Yes, Mr. Bruni.
No, I was just turning
Oh,
the
okay.
switch off.
Okay. Hearing none. Did we want to put we don't really put this summary report up.
Yes, we can.
Okay.
In your packet, you should have, at the top it says election summary report.
Just so there's a visual for those in attendance of what we are certifying.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, perfect. Thank you, CP. Okay, so obviously Director Fall has stepped us through these numbers. This is the official election summary report. So with that, I'm happy to entertain a motion to certify these results.
I move that we certify these results for the April 29th special election. Sorry.
That's all
I
good.
move that we certify these results for the April 29th, 2025 special election.
Thank you, Mr. Bruning. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Fisher. It's been moved and properly seconded to certify the election results for the April 29th, 2025 special election as presented. All those in favor? The motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay. With that business taken care of, we will now move to public comment. My understanding is we have 2 people that are joining us.
Both online.
Okay, they're both online. All right, well, what we'll do is we'll start with 1 online. We'll have 2 in the room, 1 online, then the balance in the room. So we'll start with Janet Raw, R-A-U. Ms. Raw, are you with us?
This is Janet Rao.
Rao, I apologize for the mispronunciation of your name. We are going to allocate 3 minutes per speaker for each of you for public comment. So with that, you can go ahead and begin, Ms. Raw.
Thank you. So first I want to congratulate Eric Allen on his win. Feels good to be the first person to be able to do that. And secondly, I wanted to thank the board for providing signage at the early voting location on election day so that we could direct voters who were going to those locations mistakenly. I would encourage the board to continue to do that when we have special elections, especially for any early voting locations that are not open, as we had on Easter weekend at the Smyrna Community Center. We had volunteers there directing people and had approximately 30 people who were directed to the alternate location. And without that, those 30 people would not have had a chance to vote on that day. So that's all I have. Thank you so much for all you do.
Thank you, Ms. Raw. Here in the BOC room, first up we have Mr. Ben Williams.
Oh, it's 3 minutes rather than 30.
That is
Okay.
absolutely
Oh,
correct,
okay.
3
Thank
minutes.
you. Thank you so much. Madam Chair, members of the commission, thanks for the opportunity to at least address you on a topic that I believe that's under consideration on your agenda, and that's the consolidation of precincts. I'm Ben Williams. I'm President Emeritus of the Cobb County branch of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. And as most of you in this room know, we have a special kind of connection to trying to create an atmosphere for all eligible people to vote in elections. So we appreciate that. I understand that there is thought underway of doing precinct consolidations. I have no fault with that at all. As I moved around the county during election time, it seems to me as a move like this would be a lot more efficient in terms of our use of resources, okay, and our dealing with the publics that are there. But I'd also ask you to keep in mind that something's got to be done now to make this consolidation one where we're building community of voters. So we got to do something to now let those folk who are now being aggregated together to help them to understand that they are a voting community that's in there. And SCLC always stands willing to assist you in that endeavor. The other thing, too, is looking at what we do in terms of timing, your calendar. I'd be interested to see how the calendar is going to look with the newly consolidated, what do you call that, precincts, and what opportunities that provide for those who do, of us who do work in the community, try to mobilize and to educate and mobilize folk so we can be a part of that. So my comments end there. Thank you for the time, and let's get on with it.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Next up, Beth Hendrickson.
Good afternoon. I'm Beth Hendrickson, and I would like to thank the members of this board and the election staff for all their hard work during this off year following the presidential election. The recent primary, runoff, and special elections were smooth, accessible, and secure, and they are already hard at work on the June primary and possible July runoff. Regarding co-locating and combining precincts, while this would save money and make elections more efficient, I do urge the director and this board to exercise caution in the timing and the scope of this step. Please take into account the potential effects of some of the bills that are still up for consideration before the legislature in January. Some of them propose reducing advanced in-person voting and possibly no excuse absentee by mail, and that could increase the number of voters who choose to go to their precinct on election day or must go to their precinct on election day, and it could make wait times longer. I'd also like to share a few thoughts about patriotism and service to our country. There are so many ways to show patriotism and loyalty and love of country. Some of them are saying the Pledge of Allegiance, wearing clothing, or having yard signs or bumper stickers that state one's patriotism, voting, preferably after gathering information and carefully evaluating one's decisions, participating in poll watching and other vote protection activities, or in civic meetings, serving on a government oversight board if you have expertise in an area, communicating with your elected representatives about issues important to you, regardless of their party or yours. Using any single specific action as a loyalty test is not patriotic. Judging and excoriating one another for how we do or do not choose to display our love of country does not show patriotism or serve anyone well. I believe that spending one's time and energy serving on an election board is a much better indicator of someone's commitment to their community and country than whether that person says a pledge to a symbol of that country. Publicly tearing others down for differences of opinion harms our community. Encouraging others to participate meaningfully in government and to use their voices, time, and energy and skills helps our democracy work. Thank you for the opportunity to speak and for all of your service.
Thank you, Ms. Hendrickson. Online, it should be Ms. Monica Brown. Ms. Brown, can you hear us? Ms. Brown? Does she?
Yeah.
There she is. Ms. Brown? Okay. What we can do is just come back to.
I can hear now. I was unmuting myself. Hello, everybody. How y'all doing?
Okay, we can hear you now.
Awesome. I wanted to, and thank you for everything. Thank you all for your service. And I'm Monica Brown, and I represent the Cobb County Democracy Center. And I really, really appreciate the time that you all put in to serve as our leaders. And I just wanted to say thank you. I think sometimes it's a task that is not necessarily appreciated, but I really do appreciate you all. But I wanted to talk about the consolidation, and I think someone mentioned it earlier. And my request is that we really be mindful of the numbers. We have anywhere in Cobb precincts that have as many as 6,000, almost 7,000 voters, as ranging from also to, I think the lowest precinct number is like at 1,500. That's a lot of people. When we begin to consolidate, being able to be mindful of the number of registered voters that we have in those areas is that's going to be a daunting task. So if we could just use and just I know there's consolidation. I know that that's going to be something that is critical. But being mindful of those numbers of voters so that we're not eliminating too many precincts so that we don't have enough to serve and honor the voters because it's all about making sure that the voters have equal time and having equity at the time of the poll so that we're not crowded. I think we don't want to condense too much, but that would be my suggestion is to ensure that we have an equitable and database effect as to how we go about ensuring that there are enough precincts to accommodate the voters in Cobb. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Here in the BOC room, Rosser Sutherland.
Good afternoon, Rosser Sutherland, live right here in Marietta. Just wanted to make y'all aware of a couple issues at Bridgepoint Church, Marietta 1A last week. When I went to vote, the normal place where we enter was locked, but that's where the signs were saying to still go in the door that way. And so to get in to the precinct, you kind of had to walk around into the street through the grass to go in the side door where the machines were. And there was really no signage to mark to go that way or not to use the main entrance like we usually do. And, you know, for example, like my 8.5-month pregnant sister, had to walk out into the street and go around to get to the machines. And somebody else I know that getting around with a walker had to do the same thing, and there was really no ramps or anything to help out that way. On a different topic, on precinct consolidations, one suggestion I would have is, if you could possibly find a way to combine Marietta 1A and Marietta 7A, which 7A is already at the Civic Center, I think that would work out just fine because at least my neighborhood, we already have to drive past the Civic Center to go to our voting place. And then statistically, Wards 1 and 7 in the city of Marietta usually have the lowest turnout of any of the wards or precincts in the city of Marietta. So I think those are just a couple things I want to make sure y'all take a look at, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Sutherland. Mike Benz, Mr. Benz? You'll pass? Okay. And finally, Amanda Robinson.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Amanda Robinson, Marietta. And I just want to thank you, Director Fall. Under your leadership, the work that I have done in voting and working with the Board of Elections, either as a poll watcher or in ballot duplication or other functions, I just want to thank you for the professionalism of your staff and how smoothly things went. Appreciate your leadership and all that you do.
Thank you, Ms. Robinson. That concludes public comment. We'll go on to the public hearing portion of the agenda. So we'll start with you, Ms. Director Fall.
Sure, thank you. So item 1 is specifically for Murdoch 01. This is separate because it's only in the event of a July 15th runoff that church is unable to host us that day. They let us know within the appropriate time frame. So we're looking at, in the event of a July 15th runoff, that we would temporarily relocate Murdoch 01 to Dodgen Middle School, which is just virtually across the street. It is outside of the precinct boundary because that street does dissect the boundary, but it would be in Dodgen Middle School. School's always a great partner in the summertime with their buildings, and so we would just be looking at moving Murdoch 01 only for the July 15th runoff to Dodgen Middle School.
Okay. Go ahead and go to the second item, and then we'll hear from the public, and then take the vote.
Great. So the next grouping are the ones that would be either temporarily or permanently relocated. So first is a permanent relocation. That's Clarkdale 01. This is not a consolidation. This is a relocation. Clarkdale 01, moving out of the church that can no longer house us there over to Old Clarkdale Community Center, which is a gorgeous county facility that we were able to use for early voting. It's a really great spot if you guys haven't had a chance to check it out. So our poll workers are excited to get into that building. So that'd be a permanent relocation for us. And then North Cobb 01, East Side 02, Kennesaw 4A, Bells Ferry 02, Willio 01, Kemp 02, and Clarkdale 02. Those are all co-locations starting with the June 17th election running through the end of the year. I know that there was talk in public comment, and I really appreciate everyone's feedback. The idea between co-locations and consolidations are two different things. So to clarify, these are all co-locations. That means that we'll just be co-locating two polling places inside of one polling place. When we talk about consolidation, that's the changing of the precinct boundaries. That'll be done by the Board of Commissioners later this year. So this is kind of a test run for us to see how the potential of moving these locations together, if that's a permanent solution in a higher turnout year versus this. So those handful would be temporarily co-located. So North Cobb 01 will be co-located at North Cobb Senior Center, great county partner there. East Side 02, Sewell Mill Library and Cultural Center, another great county partner.
Can you slow down just 1 minute and on the code?
Your agenda, I'm sorry, your mic.
Sorry. Can you provide the call numbers on the co-location, not just name?
Sure,
Okay,
sure.
thank you.
So North Cobb 01 will be moving to North Cobb Senior Center, which is with Ackworth 1C. Eastside 02, co-located at Sewell Mill Library and Cultural Center with Powers Ferry 01. Kennesaw 4A, co-located at Ben Robertson Community Center with Kennesaw 3A. And on that, I will note that because that's a municipal polling site, that the City of Kennesaw City Council will also be having to approve that, and they're aware, and they have the memo on the approval. Once y'all approve it, they'll put it on their agenda to approve as well. Bells Ferry 02, co-located at Covenant Presbyterian Church with Elizabeth 02. Willio 01, co-located with Wesley Chapel Methodist Church at Post Oak 01. Kemp 02, co-located at Lovingood Middle School with Oregon 01. And Clarkdale 02, co-located at Linked Up Church, which is with Sweetwater 01. So those are the co-locations starting with June 17th. And then there's one more co-location that would start with July 15th. That'd be Mars Hill 01 at Durham Middle School, which is Durham 01. So those are all the co-locations that are up. All but one would start with June 17th, and then Mars Hill 01 starting July 15th.
Are you making this recommendation because the existing site has said they can't do it anymore, or because you're trying to be proactive and?
No, these are all because the sites gave us their 90 days notice that they're no longer able to serve as a polling place.
Okay.
Most of them were in churches prior. Almost all of them were, in fact, in churches that are no longer willing to serve as a polling place.
And did you say it's only this summer or for the rest of 2025?
It'd be through the end of 2025.
Okay.
The only one that's for one election is Murdoch 01, just for July 15th. So the rest would be through the end of the year. The reason we're only proposing it through the end of the year is because we are thinking that these are potentials to be consolidated, and that would be presented to the Board of Commissioners later this summer to start in 2026. And when we're looking at the data, I know that was brought up as well, the data of how we come up with these. So we look at, of course, the active registered voters per precinct, and then we look at what their turnout is in typical elections. So for this year, for this November, we looked at the 2021 municipal elections because that also had the countywide East Blast on that ballot. So that's the most similar election that we'll have in November, where it's countywide, and then there's also municipal elections. And so we look at those numbers and we make sure that that facility can hold that number of registered voters. So the parking lot is big enough, the actual physical facility inside is large enough to hold the equipment, and that we have the poll workers to staff that size of a polling place. So all of that's taken into consideration before these proposals are made.
Do we have any idea why so many are not willing to be polling locations? This seems like an inordinate number of locations not willing to participate.
It's due to the volume of elections that we have now. So before, when we only had 2 or 3, they were willing to make it work. But now, just having some sites have already served 3 elections so far this year with the potential for 4 more. Definitely 2. Obviously, if those both have a runoff, that could be 4. So that was the number one thing that they told us, is that they can't, with their small staff, they can't help us with that many elections. Summer is also tough for churches because they have Vacation Bible School and other Bible programs or day programs for young kids. And we can't change polling places in the summertime just for the summer. So that was the reasoning they gave us, the volume of elections.
I do know that this is the public hearing portion of our agenda. We don't often have public hearing. Obviously, there's always an opportunity for public comment, but we do allow for the opportunity for the public to be heard during this portion of the agenda, recognizing that some of our public commenters have already shared feedback and things they'd like for the director and the board to consider. But we did want to give the opportunity for anyone to provide comments with respect to these particular items that are going to be considered. So if there is anyone among you that would like to be heard, please come forward, and you'll have 3 minutes. Okay. And does anyone on the board have any additional questions or comments?
I have a couple quick questions, if that's okay. Tate, can you, or Director Falk, can you define for us when, okay, so these are going to be co-located, what that looks like to the voter when they come in? Are we going to have two separate entrances, separate scanners, just sort of so everybody understands what that looks like?
Sure, that's a great question. So we're going to do something different than what we've typically done with co-located precincts where there were two separate setups. And we've decided not to do that because it doesn't cut down on the number of workers or the number of equipment, so it doesn't really help us in the long run. So what'll happen is voters will come into the same space. They'll be able to check in at the same poll pads. When you check in at your poll pad and the poll worker gives you that card that you then put in the machine, that's what has the voter's ballot on it. So that's what will issue them the correct ballot. It's unique to their specific address. So that will give them their ballot. They can go to any of the ballot marking devices, place that card in there. It'll pull up their ballot. They'll vote it, and then there'll be two separate scanners. So the scanners will be clearly marked with the precinct name, and the precinct is printed at the top of the ballot. So we had a meeting this last week with the training team, with the elections team, the prep division team, everyone to talk about all the different signage we'll need and making sure that we have clear big signs on the scanners, that the scanner officers are trained to advise the voter with a blown up top portion of a ballot. This will say your precinct name. Does it say, North Cobb 01, or does it say Ackworth 1C? You put it in that scanner and it'll scan. Even if the voter puts it in the wrong scanner, it's going to spit it back out because that scanner is programmed to only receive that precinct's ballots. And then they'll get their sticker and leave. So it'll be a much simpler process than having a stanchion down the middle of the room with the exact same setup on either side.
Thanks. And then how does this impact in terms of the actual poll workers? If you could talk for just a minute about, are we staffing? We won't have, I assume, 20 poll workers, but how is that going to look from a poll manager perspective? Will you still have a poll manager on site representing each poll, that type of thing?
Yes, that's one thing we talked about with the election staff last week. So we'll reduce the number of poll workers. So the other precinct that's moving into this new polling place, their managers and assistant managers will still be able to serve in that new location, but it's the clerks that we won't need additional clerks unless, of course, we need backup clerks or anything like that. So we'll still have the managers and assistant managers of both precincts, and then we'll just have clerks. So they'll be able to serve as provisional clerk, as assistant managers, backup managers, since they're all at that same level.
And then for provisional station, will there be separate provisional stations, or will there still be just the one? How will that be handled?
There'll be one, so it'll be one provisional station, but they will have separate paper ballots. So they'll look up their precincts, they'll have the Ackworth, 1C paper ballots, then they'll have the North Cabo 1 paper ballots, and they'll do them that way. So that's how provisionals and emergency ballots will be. So those are still separate.
So functionally, paperwork will still remain precinct level?
Yes. So we'll still have separate totals, separate recap sheets, everything like that will be separate.
Separate tapes on the door, that kind of thing?
Yeah, the scanner numbers are going to be separate.
Great. Thanks.
Yeah, sure.
I know you had a question.
Jennifer asked two of them, so we're good.
Great. I just wanted to follow up on, so there'll be one separate provisional station, but two separate bags.
Yes.
Okay.
One provisional station, two bags.
Okay.
And there'll be assistant managers from both sites there to help assist to make sure that the voters are getting the right paperwork.
Okay. Have you considered about two separate stations? I guess I just have a concern about if it's one table, and the tables aren't very, very large, and potentially one, Smyrna 01 gets put in Smyrna 02, or whatever the consolidation or the co-location. You don't have, if we're going to replicate kind of the process, if you will, as it relates to having two separate scanners where we know the ballots are going to go this place and this place, and they're separate. They're geographically, they're physically separate. Perhaps maybe do the same thing with the provisional and emergency, such that there is no opportunity for them to be potentially placed in the wrong envelope.
Sure, so we're planning to do a separate training with the managers and assistant managers and provisional clerks, as well as the scanner officers at those locations. But I can take that suggestion back to the team and see what we can do.
Yeah, the way that my mind works, it's just kind of replicating, you have two separate scanners, i.e. there's no opportunity, and it would be spit out. You don't have that opportunity for that kind of automatic check, if you will, if everything for each of the two precincts are at the same station.
Sure.
So remembering back to one of the many elections, I don't remember which one it was, we had a precinct who had the wrong ballots, apparently, and the scanner did accept those. There were 90 ballots that were actually credited to the wrong precinct. Do you
I don't
remember
recall that, no. I know that we
had to transfer those voters to the right precinct.
I know that we had the wrong PDF was assigned to, is Wade Green, I think 01 and Wade Green 02, the wrong PDF was assigned to, I think it was Wade Green 01 was getting Wade Green 02 ballots, but the scanner rejected every single one of them, and they had to put them in the emergency bin. And then that's when they realized that it's because it was the wrong ballot style. So we were able to go back, and I believe the duplication team duplicated all those ballots to the correct ballot style, and then we were able to scan them.
So they were rejected and went into the bin?
Yes. That's the LNA process.
So it won't kick back out and then not scan, right? It'll just drop into the...
If it's the wrong precinct, no, it kicks it back out. When I say they put it in the emergency bin, that's the separate bin. Like in the duplex, it's up above, or on the bucket, it's on the back side. It's not connected to it does not drop, does not tabulate. It only drops if it's tabulated.
Okay. And the other question I have, as far as the return of the paperwork and the documentation, are you going to consolidate that to one car, bringing it back, or you going to have both management teams come separate?
That's not something we talked about in the meeting, so we'll get together with the managers. I think our thought was that it'd be one car, since they'll all be together anyways, and we'll just make sure that they have all that equipment. They'll have their separate checklists. Probably the managers of both together.
Okay.
Jennifer, you had an additional question?
Yeah, just one other quick question. In terms of the communication specifically to the voters, I've worked a co-located poll, and I know a lot of times when voters come in, there's confusion. I just want to, I've said this before, but sometimes they don't know their precinct names, but they know their locations. So just making sure that the signage is like, if you used to vote at this church or this, you're in the right place, because sometimes
Yes.
they don't know their name. So just making sure that that communication, especially if you're on the scanners, like if you just put, like a lot of times they'll know where they voted, but not their precinct name or number.
Yeah, we talked about that as well with the signage that we always were required to put up signage at the previous location as well
Right.
the week before. So talking about that too. Yeah, thank
Great.
you.
Any additional questions or comments?
I would just like to make one suggestion for you to consider, and that's doing a mock election and do a do a trial run. I know you have LNA, but it would not duplicate those specific scenarios with consolidating the two precincts.
We do have currently two co-located precincts where there's 4 precincts that serve separately. So
But
2 and
don't
2.
they have separate areas?
They
You're
do.
talking about St. Anne's, they're totally
do.
separate areas in the same location.
Right.
Not in the same room.
Right. This is similar to the process we do in AIP when we have split scanners, like last May, when we had to have one scanner that was, A through N precincts and then N through Z. So it's similar to that process. So we feel confident that we are able to manage that because we've done it in the past, but we'll definitely have, last week was the first meeting, many more meetings to make sure we discuss everything prior to the additional training for the workers at those sites.
Okay.
Anything further? Okay, so with respect to the vote that needs to be taken, obviously we'll take item 1 up separately. Also, does CP have the does he have the?
He has the maps.
Yeah, if you will show Exhibit A for us, CP.
We'll start with Murdoch 01. Sorry, they're just labeled with the precinct names at the top, not exhibit.
Oh, okay,
for- well,
sorry.
his- the
I
first
thought
one
he
is-
had exactly what we have.
Yes, yeah, and then after that, they're just in
Okay,
order.
no worries, I'll make reference, just to the extent that we're voting on something, I think it's helpful for the public to see what we're voting on. So as Director Fall has made mention of, the request is to temporarily change the polling location for Murdoch 01, and again, this is only in the event of a July 15th special primary runoff. In our packets, it's Exhibit A. So, is there a motion? Yeah, we're taking it up separately. It makes sense to take it up separately.
So moved.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Mossbacher. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Fisher. It's been moved and properly seconded to approve the proposed polling location change for Murdoch 01 in the event a July 15th, 2025 special primary runoff election is required. All of those in favor? The motion passes unanimously. Next up, of these proposed polling locations changes, only one is permanent. I think it makes sense to bifurcate them, or we can take all of them up at once. The only reason that it makes sense, I think, to bifurcate them so that, again, the public can see what we're voting on. And I know we have 8 minutes. So starting with Clarkdale 01, the proposed polling location change. Currently, the location is Refuge Community Church, and the proposed, I don't see the names of them here. Oh, I need better glasses, got it. So the proposed new location is Old Clarkdale Community Center. So is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Mossbacher. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Fisher. It's been moved and properly seconded to permanently relocate Clarkdale 01 from Refuge Community Church to Old Clarkdale Community Center. All those in favor?
Could I ask a question?
Oh,
real
yes, sir.
quick? Director Fall, I thought that when you were talking through these before, you were talking about the new Clarkdale Community Center, not the old one.
It's called Old Clarkdale, but it's a new facility. Yes.
So it's a new facility. The name is Old
It's
Clarkdale.
brand new renovation.
I see.
Yes, sir.
Well, that makes sense.
The new Old Clarkdale Community Center. So, Mr. Bruning, are you in favor?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Sorry.
Register your vote. The motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Next up is North Cobb 01. So, again, North Cobb, the current location is Cobb Vineyard Christian Fellowship Church. The proposal is to co-locate it with AC 1C, which is the North Cobb Senior Center. Is there a motion? Thank you, Ms. Mossbacher. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Fisher. It's been moved and properly seconded to approve the co-location of North Cobb 01 with AC 1C. All those in favor? The motion passes unanimously. Next up is Eastside 02, EA02, which is currently located at Eastside Baptist Church. The proposal is to co-locate it with PF01, located at the Sewell Mill Library and Cultural Center. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Mossbacher. Is there a second?
Second.
Sorry.
No worries. Thank you, Ms. Fisher. It's been moved and properly seconded to approve the proposed co-location of Eastside 02 with PF01. All those in favor? The motion passes unanimously. Next up, Kennesaw 4A, which is currently located at the Kennesaw First Baptist Church. The proposal is to co-locate this polling place with KE3A, which is the Ben Robertson Community Center. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Mossbacher. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Fisher. It's been moved and properly seconded to co-locate Kennesaw 4A with KE3A. All those in favor? The motion passes unanimously. Just a few more. Bells Ferry 02. The proposal is to co-locate Bells Ferry 02 with EL02, which is currently located at Christ Worship Center. The co-location would take place at Covenant Presbyterian Church. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Mossbacher. Is there a second?
Can I ask a question before we call the vote on this one?
I'm happy to ask for discussion before I call for the vote.
You just did, didn't you?
No, I called for a second.
Oh, sorry.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Bruning. Is there any discussion?
I'm just looking at this map and hunting for where EL02 is in relation to Bells Ferry.
It's in the upper right hand.
Talking about the precinct boundary for EL02?
Mm-hmm.
I believe it's this southeast, quad that is cut off right here. This is a precinct boundary line, this blue line. I believe, or I think it's this one right here under the map, actually. It would say EL02 right there. It's this portion that stretches down here. You can see it's kind of cut off by the current location text box.
It's where current location is written, correct?
Yes.
In the lower right-hand corner on the map.
Yes.
Okay. That's kind of important to know.
So it looks like it was not in the, it looks like it wasn't in the precinct boundary from
No,
the beginning.
EL02's precinct was in BF02's
Right.
precinct boundary, yes.
So EL02 was already outside of its precinct boundary.
Yes, so Bells Ferry 02 voters will actually be voting inside Bells Ferry 02.
Okay.
Thank you.
I have a question, Tate. I noticed that the other ones were at, like, not churches, public facilities, and this one is at a church, the new co-located site. Are we confident that that church, Covenant Presbyterian, would be fine going forward since so many other churches are hesitant to host?
We continue to rely on our churches. They haven't given us any type of notice. They're required to give us 90 days notice ahead of canceling. So there's always the possibility, 90 days before November, that they give us that, but we've received no indication that they have concerns or have complained or anything like that.
Okay, let's hope
Yes.
they will continue.
Yes, fingers crossed.
Any additional questions?
I do have, because you know how I don't like these out of boundary locations, but did you provide us with the total voters on both? Of
I did, yes.
You did?
The active registered counts on both.
Do we have that?
Not in your packet. It was provided to you last week, I believe, in a spreadsheet.
Do you have
Or
a
the week
specific
before that.
question?
I have the numbers in front of me.
Oh,
Just-
good, because I was going to pull them up.
If we hadn't gotten it, I just was going to ask for it.
Yeah.
Because I think it's kind of critical information.
That spreadsheet also
since we're
contains-
voting on these.
It
but
contains
I
that
didn't
2021 Muni East Splosh turnout for both precincts combined, as well as what their precinct turnout was in the 2024 presidential election. So you have a similar turnout as well as a large turnout.
I was actually more referencing the total number of
Yes, that's included
voters.
as well.
Okay.
Any additional questions? Okay. It's been moved and properly seconded to approve the proposed co-location of Bells Ferry 02 with EL02, such that the location will be Covenant Presbyterian Church. All of those in favor? Any opposition? The motion passes unanimously. Okay. Next up is WL01, Willio 01, currently located at the Cobb Community Church. This would be co-located at P001, which is Wesley Chapel Methodist Church. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Mosbacher. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Bruning. It's been moved and properly seconded to approve the co-location of polling location LW01 with P001. All of those in favor? Any opposition? No, the motion passes unanimously. Next up is Kemp 02. The proposal is to co-locate Kemp 02 with Oregon 01 located at Lovingood Middle School. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Mosbacher. Is there a second?
Second.
Got a question.
Yes.
I noticed we're co-locating for the middle school, but I know that we have a plan to get out of all schools. So I guess what's the reasoning for this?
Only a plan to get out of some of the schools by the end of the year. This is one of those schools we're going to be getting out of, so that's why this would just be through the end of 2025. And then we'll look at the potential area around that for where we can potentially consolidate and other facilities that are more long-term.
Okay. I just feel like the voters are going to have to be moved twice.
Yes.
Ms. Effort raises a good question. I'm assuming there were no other options with respect to this proposed co-location?
Not as closely located to the precinct as this one. And luckily for the rest of the school year, schools are out. So they're willing, of course, to accommodate a larger size, but that was a consideration, understanding that Lovingood is one of the schools we'll be getting out of, but we're looking at potentially consolidating. And so it would be those voters already moving from Lovingood as well as the voters from Kempo 2.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, if I'm a voter in Kempo 2, I have to get the communication, which hopefully I will get, that I'm moving to Lovingood Middle School, and then a few months later, I've got to get another communication that I'm moving again, which
Yes.
I feel like could be very confusing.
The communication that's going to go out this week says through the end of 2025, so it's very clear it's just for this calendar year, and then additional communication, and of course there will always be signs at the for the whole year at the previous voting location. It's not ideal by any means, and it's not our preference, but unfortunately under the circumstances, this was the best we could do.
Anything further? So the motion has been made and properly seconded to approve the co-location of Kempo 2 with Oregon 01 located at Lovingood Middle School. All of those in favor? The motion passes unanimously. Just two more. Next up is Clarkdale 02, currently located at Spirit Life Church of God. The proposal is to co-locate it with polling location SW01, which is located at Linked Up Church. Is there a motion to approve this co-location?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Mosbacher. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Fisher. Any discussion before we call the vote? No? Okay. All of those in favor? The motion passes unanimously. The final one is Mars Hill 01, which is currently located at Northwest Christian Church. The proposal is to co-locate it with polling location P001, which is located at Durham Middle School.
Chairwoman, I apologize. There's a mistype there. It's not Post Oak 01, it's DU01, Durham 01. That was a mistype from the
Okay.
map. I apologize.
No worries, and thank you for that. We want to make sure the record is correct. So the proposed co-location would be Mars Hill 01 with Durham 01, which is located at Durham Middle School.
And just to note, this is another school, so what's
I believe this is one that we're staying in. I think Durham is one of the ones we're staying in. It's not one. Yes.
At least through the end of the year, or
Through
beyond the end of the
next year. Yes.
The end of next
It's not
year.
on the get out of this year.
I mean,
yes.
I guess I just want to make it public record that we understand that we're limited in options, but it is not an ideal situation to move more voters into a school.
When we're in recess, I'll double check if Durham's one we're getting out of this year or next year. I believe it's one we're staying in, and I'll let you guys know when we come back from recess.
Okay. And then noting that we do have to go to recess, but if you could send us just that full list of the proposals for 25, out by the end of 25, out by the end of 2026. So the motion has been made and, no, the motion has not been made. So moved. Thank you.
Second.
I appreciate that. And the motion has been made and properly seconded to approve the co-location of Mars Hill 01 with Durham 01 located at Durham Middle School. All of those in favor? The motion passes unanimously. Thank you. I note that the time is 3:56. We're about 6 minutes behind the proposed time that we would take a recess. I will entertain a motion to recess the meeting.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Bruning. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Fisher. It's been moved and properly seconded to recess our meeting for purposes of a swearing in. All of those in favor? Okay. Motion passes unanimously. We will resume upon the conclusion of the other business.
Leave our things here, or do we have to pay?
We can leave our items there? Okay. Good afternoon. I will entertain a motion to come out of recess.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded to conclude recess and come back into our meeting. All of those in favor? The motion passes unanimously. I believe we are now at the old business portion on the agenda. Any old business? Hearing none, we'll move on to item 3 under the new business portion of our agenda. Director Fall?
Thank you. So we have the request to conduct the November 4th, 2025 municipal general elections for 6 of our 7 cities this fall, the cities of Ackworth, Austell, Kennesaw, Mableton, Marietta, and Powder Springs. This is slightly different from previous because it is in conjunction with the statewide special election. But the chairwoman has the contracts in front of her. You were previously circulated the original contract that was provided by the county attorney's office and approved, and all the cities have signed them. And so now it's our turn to sign them and send them back.
Okay. So I've gone through and prepared to sign each of them. I guess we'll just go ahead and try to figure out the most efficient way to take this vote. We can do it individually per municipality or do all of them at once.
I think we can do all at once.
We can do all at once, okay.
Great.
Alrighty. So the, obviously a request has been received from each of the following municipalities, that being the cities of Ackworth, Austell, Kennesaw, Mableton, Marietta, and Powder Springs, to conduct their general elections, which will take place on November the 4th of this year. Is there a motion to approve the request from the respective municipalities listed?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Bruning. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Fisher. It's been moved and properly seconded to approve the request from each of the following municipalities, that being the cities of Ackworth, Austell, Kennesaw, Mableton, Marietta, and Powder Springs, to conduct the general elections for those municipalities on November the 4th of this year. All of those in favor? The motion passes unanimously. I'll make certain I get these signed before we leave. Next up on the agenda is a request to amend the Board of Elections and Registration meeting dates due to the possibility of a July 15th runoff.
Sure, so we'll get the proposed meeting schedule pulled up. It's the second page of that 2-page handout is where the changes are. Yes.
Exhibit C in our packets.
Thank you. So when we originally put together the schedule for approval, we were very hopeful that we would not have a July runoff, and now we're not as hopeful. So we wanted to go ahead and amend the schedule. So originally we just had the July 14th meeting, which will be our meeting if there's not a runoff. But in the event that there is a runoff, we will have our July 15th election night meeting, July 18th pre-certification meeting. Both of those will take place at the elections office. And then July 21st certification meeting here at 100 Cherokee. Those are the changes, is adding that set of 3 meetings to the previously approved schedule.
Okay. July 15th, 18th, and 21st.
Correct.
Okay. I do note during our Friday pre-certification election meeting, the possibility or the suggestion of whether we would have the opportunity to hold a pre-certification meeting for the July 15th election, if there is one, whether we could hold that via Zoom. I only raise it to the extent that there is a specific reference that the meeting would take place at the elections office. So anything further to share with us, Mr. White?
I don't think there's any restrictions on saying, particularly since there's no action items being taken, but you would need, I think you need to have someone present. I mean, I think you still have to have a physical meeting, and then you can have people attend virtually.
Okay.
As needed, but I don't, the whole thing can't just be,
Virtual.
virtual.
So if I showed up at the election board meeting, or at the election office, everyone else could, or
Right.
if
Or if
Director
Fall, I'll
Fall
look and
is
see if the
there.
director
Okay.
could do it.
Okay.
But, yeah, we just have to have some place where people could attend.
Okay. So I guess that would be my only, perhaps, suggested amendment to the schedule, to the extent I know Ms. Mossbacher raised it last Friday, the possibility of this July 18th meeting. as opposed to it being noted as being held at the elections office. We'd hold that via Zoom. Is there any comment or further conversation about that?
I just have one thought on, of course, it would be a statewide, right? So we'd have to have all precincts. Just wondering on these smaller ones if there's any way to move our certification meeting to the Friday prior to the Monday.
Is it not?
No, certification is on Monday.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're talking about
And,
certification and
yeah,
not
just
pre-certification.
Thinking out loud on these pre-certification meetings, I do know one county who does certify on the Friday after the election versus the following Monday, but.
I guess my question with respect to that particular county, I presume they are complying with the SEB rule that requires a pre-certification
I
meeting.
don't think we can assume that.
Okay, well.
Oh, you mean
I would-
not on their
Right,
pre-certification?
because
Yes,
that's the day we're
yes.
holding a pre-cert. So are you talking about combining the two?
Yeah.
Well, Debbie, the provisionals aren't due until Friday at 5 PM. So how would we be able to certify before Friday at 5 PM?
An evening meeting.
On a Friday?
Oh,
Is that what that county does? I'm curious.
if it was open bar. Just thinking out loud, just thinking out loud.
Okay.
Trying to avoid all these meetings.
I mean, I like the idea of not having extra meetings. I was just curious how that works if
It wouldn't.
you don't have all the
It
votes
would
in.
not.
Okay, because I was going
Okay.
to ask the same thing.
That's
like
why you
how-
have to think out loud.
Okay.
Otherwise, it becomes circular thought.
No worries. And then I guess my only other point is if we are looking at holding a virtual meeting on July 18th for the pre-certification, same thing, the June 20th pre-certification meeting, it's presently noted that it would be held at the elections office under the same rationale. I presume we could do that virtually, unless there's any objection.
What I might do is just list the elections office and then say, but maybe put
Okay.
a slash and say virtual
Okay.
too. But like, that way people that want to attend in person could come to the actual.
If they want to attend in person, they can,
Right.
but, okay. All right. And Director Fall, you and the team will make the update per Mr. White's suggestions? Okay. Anything further? All right. Hearing none, or hearing nothing else, then we'll entertain a motion to approve the modifications to our meeting dates and times for 2025 to add possibly, if needed, the July 15th, July 18th, and July 21st meeting dates as noted in your, the list that's there before you. Is there a motion?
Don't we also need to move to change to virtual?
Mr. White just advised us that we should leave the office noted, but then we could also have virtual. So I made reference to June 20th and July 18th as the possibility of having those virtual.
About November the 7th?
I believe because that was a statewide, my recollection of last Friday's discussion, the possibility of having a virtual meeting for the pre-certification was only for the PSC election and its runoff this summer. My recollection is that the pre-cert for November the 7th, that wasn't a possibility because of the size of the size of the election, and we were only looking at potential virtual meetings for smaller elections.
How about December 5th?
Steve, your mic's off.
He inquired about December the 5th, if there is potentially a runoff needed.
I think it makes sense. If we're not taking a vote and the results aren't official, then,
Well, that would only be for municipal elections.
right.
And PSC.
No, the PSC wouldn't be, there would not be a runoff.
Right, the runoff, yeah.
You're talking about the runoff on December the 5th,
Yes.
correct? Right, that would only be a runoff there. PSC would obviously be November the 4th, as well as municipal.
How about we try it for June and July?
Okay.
Let's see how that goes, and then if that goes well, and.
Right. I just
there's-
remember a
'cause we
specific
can-
conversation
Totally,
about.
I agree with you. I think
November the
November will
4th.
ultimately be in person
Person.
still. That would be
Mhm.
my inclination, because it's a general, we're dealing with the municipals and the PSC statewide race. But I think for the June and July, we can see how that goes, and Daniel can confirm that that works. And the public, we can see how that goes with the public, too. That'd be my thought.
Okay.
Why is the June, I mean, the June is statewide as well. So how is that any different than the November?
I think it was the size, not so much that it's state, but it was the size of the election, given the number of races on the ballot. But I mean, if there is
It's
unreadiness
still
or.
the-
November is also municipals. So we're dealing with the 6 municipalities in addition to that. We have just one thing on the ballot in June and
Oh,
July.
He had mentioned, what? November 7th is
Right.
the
That's what I'm saying, the number of
municipal.
races for June and July versus the number of races in November.
Okay.
So, okay. So, is there a motion to accept the agenda, the proposed schedule as provided with the notations?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Mosbacher. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Fisher. It's been moved and properly seconded to amend our agenda, I keep saying agenda, our meeting schedule to add July 15th, 18th, and 21st in the event that there is a runoff election for, in the PSC race. All of those in favor? The motion passes unanimously. The next item on the agenda is the advance in-person voting schedule for the November, I think that, should that be November 4th or 5th? It's either wrong on one or wrong on the other. It's November the 4th. It should be November the 5th, or November the 4th on the agenda.
On the calendar.
No, it's November the 4th on the meeting dates and times. On the agenda, it says November the 5th.
Oh, okay.
So the AIP voting schedule for the November 4th municipal election, PSC general election, it's Exhibit D in your packets.
We have slides for those as well. We'll get those pulled up so I can flip back and forth a little bit easier. So we wanted to go ahead and propose the November AIP schedule. That way we could let the municipalities know, as those of you who were on the board in 2023 recall, when there's just a municipal election, the board doesn't decide on what the AIP locations and sites and times are. It's up to the cities to do that. So this is actually a much larger schedule than we had in 2023. This is a copy and paste of what we're doing this June in terms of the dates and times. And we're doing one side in each city. And then although there's no city in the East Cobb area, since we will have the PSC election, we wanted to make sure we had an AIP site in the East Cobb area. That way if voters wanted to vote early for PSC, they would have a location proximate to them. So that's why you see that East Cobb Government Center location at the bottom. All the other sites are provided to us by the city. And then like I said, the dates and times are the same as the June. So first 2 weeks, 8 to 6, Saturdays, 8 to 6, the second Sunday, noon to 5, and then the final week, Monday through Friday, 7 to 7. So what's already been approved for June.
I believe
Having
you have
gone through 2022 election, when we had crossover elections between a special House race and I guess the statewide races. It did not work out so well combining election, allowing people at a location to vote for two different elections. We didn't allow it in 22, but it was very confusing to voters. I don't
So
know if y'all remember that.
Everything will be on one ballot. So like I don't live in a city, So my ballot will just have districts 2 and 3 for PSC in November. And then if you live inside the city of Marietta, you would have your city ward, your school district, mayor, and then it would also have PSC. It's all one ballot. It's not 2 separate elections. They're being run in conjunction. So you get your ballot when you check in. It's put onto your card, you put it in the ballot marking device, and it brings up your ballot. It won't be 2 separate, there won't be separate scanners or separate ballots or anything like that.
So
I-
Debbie,
And for
don't
early vote, anybody
see-
can go to any of these locations. So like, that's the other thing too. Like, you can live in
Right.
East Cobb and vote at the main office and still get the
That's what I'll
ballot
do.
that just has.
It
the
doesn't
two
make
races.
sense to me that people would come all the way to East Cobb Government Center that live at, well, maybe along the lower Roswell Road area that is the city, but
Well, it's for,
I
it's
guess
for
what
public
would be,
service
what is
commissioner.
your proposal? So to the extent that what's being suggested or what's being proposed, does not seem,
we're approving for the municipal elections, right?
It's the November 4th election.
It's
both.
municipal and PSC together, so that people who don't live in a municipality would just have the PSC on their ballot.
Okay,
right, me, I live in Smyrna, I'd only have PSC on my ballot.
okay.
And here's a map as well for a
Okay.
visual. It's in your packet. So like I said, the cities identified their site, and then we added the East Cobb Government Center site as well. So there's a visual as well. And that's why the cities have the drop boxes, since we're limited to 5+1 at our office. The 6 cities get those drop boxes, so that's where the stars are noting.
All right, and to be clear, the municipalities have determined what they want the AIP location to be in each of their, in each of the municipalities, correct?
Correct. So the only one
the only one that we've added is East Cobb.
Right, so that's the
Okay.
only one that's up for discussion of changing or removing or
Okay.
relocating or.
So does,
I guess, I don't see Tim Lee as a location.
Yes.
And I know the folks in East Cobb tend to go to Tim Lee. And, you know, given how little turnout we've seen in elections this year, I'm hesitant to even postulate that we should add one, but it seems very thin coverage in East Cobb.
Yeah.
We did make an agreement with the constituents of Tim D. Lee Senior Center to not use their facility during odd years. So there's a library in that same complex we could use. But with the expected turnout of this election, I would not want to use such a large facility like Tim Lee gives us. So if the board would like to add a secondary East Cobb site, which is a consideration since all the cities only have one, so that's a consideration as well. We could look at using, I believe it's Mountain View Library, I think is the name of the library in that complex. But I would personally oppose to Tim Lee. Same parking lot, just a different building.
There's a community center there as well, which is right in front of,
It's a little funky because it's actually privately owned. It's not owned by the county. The land is owned by the county, but the facility is privately owned. So it's difficult for us to utilize that facility.
But there is a library there
Yes.
that's right adjacent. Of course, these are locations that have to be open for 3 weeks, right?
Correct. Yeah, so looking at the hours that are up on the screen now, that's the proposal. Again, it's a mere proposal of what's already been approved for June. So it's a little bit shorter those first 2 weeks, both Saturdays, and then just the second Sunday, but that last week, 7 to 7.
I was going to raise the point about the hours. I know since I've been on this board, we have been striving for consistency with respect to the hours to the extent that we can. I understand that the municipalities select the locations. We set the hours or they set the hours?
You set the hours for this year.
Okay. And then I'll be honest, I also had raised a point whether this was something that this board needed to vote on. Obviously, potentially the composition of this board changes minimally with one person come July 1. But if we do want to, we believe it's within this board's purview to go ahead and vote on this, because I know we want to give some, advance notice and provide everything to the cities at the same time. I guess I just question the 8 to 6 during the week, whereas we have been striving for consistency. And I know that there are a lot of elections this year, not quite an off year for Cobb. But I guess what are thoughts with respect to the 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday or during the weekdays?
I think this is what we did for June. It was sort of, I feel like that compromise, because we were sort of mandated to have the 3 weeks. So for me, I'm always the one who's like 7 to 7, 7 to 7, but I do think with 3 weeks, with this race, with this size election, it seemed to me that keeping it consistent through the year maybe made sense to voters. It's an off year. This is what we did in June. Potentially, this looks the same as what the voters had in June for the 3 full weeks.
Okay.
I'm open either way. It's just like, I do see that this matches what we did for June.
Right. I don't think it matches what we did earlier this year, though. So it's fine.
But we only had 1 week.
Right.
Right? So we did 1 week at 7 to 7, and then this is, I think the state mandated that we had to have the 3 weeks for the PSC.
State law, yeah.
So it seemed like a lot,
I think for us,
but
it's rational, but for someone that normally goes and votes at 7 a.m. on their way to work, or 7:30
Definitely.
a.m., that was the consistency that we've all said that we were working on. But if it's not something that we're focused on for this, then I'm fine to let it go.
I think because it will be a much lower turnout, there will be an awful lot of dead time in 3 weeks of early voting, of people sitting there doing crossword puzzles, so it's.
Understood. We'll just need to do what we always do, make certain that the time is open. Anyone else have any comments or questions about the proposed?
well, and we do typically see the highest turnout in that last week. So I think that the fact that we have the Saturday, the Sunday, and that last week at 7 to 7, I felt like that was good coverage. I'm open to discussion, but I definitely, 3 weeks is a long time. Hopefully we can accommodate all of our voters. And I like that we have a location that's east of 75. I do feel like that's important. So even though we're not necessarily required to, but I do appreciate that being offered.
And it sounds like there might be the possibility of 2, correct? Or no? Is it?
If that's the board's desire for us to go back and add a secondary East Cobb site, we can take this proposal back and edit it and bring it back to you in the next meeting, if that's the board's desire.
Okay. Well, I heard Mr. Bruning raise Tim Lee. Obviously, the agreement has been made with Tim Lee or their constituents that we would not be in that location in odd number of years. And I heard reference to a library. So I did not take that to be in lieu of. I understood that to be in addition to, but I could be wrong. What was the suggestion, Mr. Bruning?
Well, I questioned because Tim Lee has been such a large turnout in AIP that it just, looking at the map, it looks like there's very little capacity shown in East Cobb, and that's where a whole lot of voters are.
Okay.
And seems to me like Tim Lee would be a good location.
So
but
that would be in lieu of East Cobb Government Center?
No.
In addition to? That's what I was trying to understand. So it's in addition to?
Right.
Okay.
And Steve, what I just heard Tate say is, the Tim Lee Center isn't available, it would have to be one of the nearby sites.
It was the library, I think.
Yeah, the library's right across the street.
It's
I mean,
actually in the same.
We don't have confirmation from the library, so we'd have to take this proposal back. If that's the majority of the board's desire is to explore a secondary East Cobb site, we can go and communicate with Mountain View and see if they'd be willing to host us, and then we could bring the proposal back to at the meeting once we have confirmation.
Right. I was trying to understand what we did and didn't have confirmation of, because to your point, Director Fall, if we're attempting to get this information to the municipalities, we really could vote on those locations that will be in the municipalities, and we could reserve any vote or table any vote with respect to the East Cobb area, such that you check or your team checks with Mountain View, and if it works for them, bring that back, and we could add East Cobb Government Center together with Mountain View Library. Trying to just understand what would be the most appropriate thing to vote on today.
Well, and I just do want to add, for June, which is what we're really kind of East Cobb Government Center, we're comparing to June, really, because that's the only people that are eligible for that. East Cobb's only eligible for the PSC race. And in
Right.
June, we picked the East Cobb so we just have East Cobb Government Center for that quadrant, for that district in that area for the PSC race. So from a consistency, voters in June will be voting in that area at East Cobb Government Center. We just have that one location covering that area.
So then it raises a question as to whether we need to consider Mountain View Library.
I'm just saying, like, if we're looking at apples to apples.
Right.
I guess we'll know when the voters start complaining in East Cobb.
Your mic's on.
Because I
Your mic.
think they will.
Your mic's on.
Sorry. I guess we'll know more in June when they only have that one location. If you look at the numbers that come in consistently between East Cobb and Tim Lee, they're always in the top 3 and usually the top 1 and 2, only next to Smyrna.
So can we wait on that? I think one of you mentioned that.
That's what I was trying to
Yeah.
get to, trying to figure out
Yes.
what we, yeah.
Yeah, let's vote on the others, like Tori said, and kind of see how East Cobb goes for the June election before we commit to November.
I think we should.
think we should as
There
well.
is no rush on this. I mean, we only approved the early voting for the election we just finished in the nick of time
Right.
to meet all requirements. And I think you're going to have some unhappy campers in East Cobb.
Okay. So then the proposed vote today, if everyone is in a position to move forward with it, would be with respect to the locations as they will be located in the municipalities. And we'll table any vote with respect to locations in the east quadrant or east portion of the county. Or do
we
you want to table the
it?
whole thing?
I mean, I think it's more confusing to put something out and then put a second thing out.
I don't think we were
That's-
putting anything out. I think, well, Director Fall, how were you proposing to, when you and I spoke about this, because I raised whether this needed to be voted on anyway, given the fact that it is May the 5th, and this election isn't until November. And then Director Fall shared that she wanted to provide a comprehensive kind of packet of information to the municipalities. And I don't disagree with that, but I guess we weren't proposing to publish this.
No, I was just gonna include the flyer with the contracts to the cities.
Right, but then we'd have to come back to Ms. Mosbacher's point, we'd have to come back with a new flyer.
Right, so I can
Okay.
just provide them their locations, if you guys wanna move forward with the cities only, I can just provide them their location only, time and date. And then it's y'all's purview of what you wanna do. So it's up to
I
you.
just wouldn't want anything to be circulated.
Right.
To me, it would be, we would vote on it when it was ready, so that there was one flyer that got circulated.
Right,
That's
and that's
me
what I was
personally.
inquiring. So, Director Fall, if we're not, when you say you're gonna provide them with their location, when you email the, fully executed copy of the contract, you're then letting the folks in Marietta know that it's 995 Roswell. You're not going to distribute any type of flyer. It would just be in the body of an email or something to that effect? Okay. So I guess, who is uncomfortable with moving forward? I see it on both sides. So we don't want to move forward with this vote now?
That's my I would just wait, and if we don't want to add East Cobb right now, I would prefer to look at the whole schedule at once, not in
Right.
pieces. That's me.
Okay.
I would suggest that we ask Director Fall to canvass the library at Tim Lee, or near Tim Lee, and confirm whether they would be available.
Sure, we're happy to do that. I think it's also, if we're looking at broadening and adding additional locations, When we work on AIP sites, we think about the number by commission district, because that's how we think to try to equally spread them out through 1, 2, 3, 4. So this would be the only site in 3. So if we added another one, that would be 2 in 3, right? But you can also see on the map that's up that there is a large portion of West Cobb that is not inside of a municipality. And if we're gonna broaden, I would like to hear the board's perspective on broadening and adding a West Cobb location in that central area as well. We hadn't planned on it since there are cities inside of District 1 that are comprehensive. As you can see, more in the northwest portion of Cobb, but I would like to just have that discussion now so we can bring you guys a more comprehensive flyer of what you want to see at the next opportunity, and that way we can get it done.
You're talking about like up in the Due West Road, Mars Hill Road area?
Yeah, everywhere in that white section is not side of a municipality. So in June, we are voting at West Cobb Regional Library. And that's kind of in that middle portion there.
Okay.
In between the cities.
Perhaps it's a matter of connecting with the folks at West Cobb Library to see if they would serve also as a polling location for the November election. It facilitates consistency, to Ms. Mossbacher's point. Okay. So it looks like we're going to table this agenda item, voting on the AIP scheduled for the November 4th Municipal and Public Service Special General Election.
I think that's the wise idea, and I would also be interested in historic turnout in West Cobb and East Cobb, and all of the AIP locations we've had, even if it's a historic average, because I think you'll find the turnout in East Cobb is far higher than West Cobb, just since you asked. I'm pretty sure East Cobb far exceeds turnout in District 1 versus District 3. Just saying.
I'll provide the turnout of that 2021 East Bloss and municipal elections. That's the most similar election we have to this, and I will get that data over to y'all.
Okay, thank you. And the floor remains with you for the director's update. Yes, sir.
Can we get an actual motion to table that, though?
Oh, sorry. We'll entertain a motion to table item 5 under new business, the AIP scheduled for the November 4th election.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Bruning. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Fisher. It's been moved and properly seconded to table this agenda item. All those in favor? The motion passes.
Great. Just 2 quick slides for y'all. So up first is our remaining elections. So 3 done, maybe 4 to go. Next up is June 17th, which is what we'll talk about, all the preparations we're making for that. Potential runoff July 15th, November 4th, and then municipal runoff December 2nd. So as we prepare for June, which started weeks ago, a little breakdown by department. So absentee by mail applications, to date we've received 70 total, 18 are under further review, 52 have been accepted. Our first ABM mail out will be Monday, May 19th. AIP training starts this Thursday, May 10th through this Saturday, this Thursday, May 8th through this Saturday, May 10th. So quick turnaround for those workers. And then our first day of AIP will be Tuesday, May 27th. That's due to the Memorial Day holiday on Monday, the 26th. So we'll start at 8 a.m. Tuesday, May 27th. The elections team has trained the trainer this Friday, May 9th, so quick turnaround for them as well. And then training will begin Monday, May 12th, and then we'll conclude Election Day training on Saturday, June 7th. Currently 54% staffed, so we're looking great ahead of June and getting all 148 precincts staffed. Prep Center will have LNA on Thursday, May 15th. That'll start at 9 a.m. And then ABM LNA will be at 10 a.m. on the same day. So we'll send out the notice to the parties this week. Parties have already gotten notice of their poll watcher packet, so that's already been provided to them. And then registration, the voter registration deadline is Monday, May 19th. And then we have about 13,000 applications to key. The vast majority of those are coming from DDS. So we have those to key prior to the May 19th deadline. And that is where we're at for June 17th.
Thank you, Director Fall. Are there any questions for Director Fall with respect to the update she just provided?
Thank you.
Okay. Any board member comments?
Can I?
Yes,
I'm
sir.
Not a board member comment, and I wanted to do this outside of executive session. As I was telling you about the virtual meeting thing, I remember I pulled that up after our meeting Friday and said, I sent it to myself and made a note. And as I was telling you about having the virtual meeting, I was like, let me go reread that one more time. And I just want to, whenever I find this stuff, and I have said it in a public meeting, I want to, correct it if it's not right. That's actually for the virtual meeting, and you guys were asking last week about, well, it looks like SEB meets virtually and these other things. The statute actually talks about statewide agencies and committees can meet virtually. And then there's a list of 4 other types of agencies that can meet virtually, hospital authorities. So there's a couple, like 3 or 4 others. Unfortunately, boards of elections are not one of them. So I just want to kind of go back. I know right now what we said, but we left it on there as the elections office. So there is a rule that says if you guys are gathered and you're not voting, like there's some provisions that say, as long as you're not really, it's not a meeting if you're not voting or conducting certain types of business. There's a list of definitions in the Open Meetings Act. So just wanted to correct that because I was like, let me go back and read that again. So you would have to, it's annoying to have a pre-cert meeting for every one of these little things. We can thank the agency that doesn't have to meet in person for adding that as a rule. But the SEB rule says, you got to have the pre-cert meeting, and because it's a public meeting where public business is being discussed, you have to have a quorum. So in person. So just want to correct that.
No virtual meetings for pre-cert meetings. We must be in person.
Yep.
Thank you for the
I just
clarification.
want to correct that as soon as possible.
All right, thank you for that.
I have a question. As long as we have a quorum, only 3 of us have to be present.
That's right. So you have to
Just,
take turns.
I'm just making a note of that.
That's right.
Okay.
Okay.
Rock, paper, scissors,
draw
I don't know.
straws?
Draw straws? Okay. Well, we are fully informed, and a decision or a determination will be made who will be there with respect to establishing that quorum. Any additional board member comments?
I do have just a couple of things I will throw out there, and maybe we have some answers. I believe I sent you all the news article from East Cobb News about the notification of the Cobb data breach being a ransomware attack. I also saw the other night on the local news additional information about it being a ransomware attack. However, there hasn't been a lot of detail on that. It keeps saying at this time they only believe it affected 10 people, but they don't know what the actual ransomware was. And I would just like confirmation from Cobb County if elections, what anyone involved in the elections, whether it came from our database, were involved with that. And I don't know that that has to be public knowledge since they aren't making any of this public, but I do believe it's important that we, at least the board, is given an update whether it did involve us or didn't.
Understood.
So I wanted to make that particular comment. And then also, with all these elections that seem to be never ending, where do we fit in the removal of all of the inactive voters?
I haven't been given a date from the Secretary of State's office. We haven't been notified of when the removal will take place. We were told early summer, as I believe what the press release said.
Yeah, well, it looks like on our calendar, we don't have a summer. June, July, we skip August.
The removals will be done by
By the
the Secretary of State.
Okay.
Yeah, that was my
So
understanding as
what,
well.
just refresh my mind, Daniel, on what the law is. You can't remove within X number of days of a,
Well, this is not, well, within 90 days under NVRA, you can't do list maintenance. And so, but that's of a federal election. Which is why we do list maintenance in the off years.
And we have no federal elections
Right.
this year.
The reason I'm asking is, as you know, because I brought it up multiple times, I have my own recommendations on list maintenance. So if I fall during that same period with the Secretary of State, then we're safe, correct?
Yes. I mean,
Okay.
there's a lot of other facts that would have to be assumed, you know, it fits, but yes, I mean, off year maintenance is the default.
It's hard to find 90 days.
Well, right, but you
But
don't
the
have to.
90
It's not a
days isn't
federal-
applicable because there's no federal election, so we should be fine. It's 90 days prior to a federal election taking place, and with this being an off year, well, an off federal year. Cobb doesn't get, Cobb elections doesn't get an off year, obviously. So,
Okay. All right, thank
Okay.
you.
alrighty. Anything further? Okay. With respect to board member comments, I did have a conversation with Mr. White and suggested that we do go into executive session for a personnel matter. So I will entertain a motion to move into executive session for a personnel matter.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Bruning. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Fisher. It's been moved and properly seconded to move into executive session for purposes of discussing a personnel matter. All those in favor? The motion passes unanimously. Thank you. So going into executive session, we will not need to take a vote coming out of it. Yeah, we don't. I don't believe we need to take a vote coming out of it. And so for those of you that have joined us, recognize that our next meetings are June 17th, June 20th, and June 23rd. The first two of those will be at our office, and the last one, June 23rd, will be our regular and certification meeting that will take place here at 3 p.m. And we will come back. Feel free to stay, but again, I don't anticipate that we'll take up any business at the conclusion of executive session.